Okay, so there's a few news things that caught my attention. I just was on Paul Security podcast, and another guy there pointed out this thing, the Ultimate iOS Hardening Guide, with a lot of things you can do to make your iPhone more secure. It includes some kind of anti-theft thing. Which I guess there are too many things here to find it, but there's an anti-theft feature.
But technically speaking, it's just for quick Juniper notebooks.
Yeah, well, anyway, there's an anti-theft feature in here. Let me interrupt you there, Andrew, so people can hear me. There's an anti-theft feature there, which will, I think what it'll do is it'll stop people from changing the password unless they're in a familiar known location. So that's one of the many things here. I can't find it now, but he was talking about it, and that's a good feature. Anyway, let's see if I can get any more of these to work. I've got to go past this nonsense. So this is something I've been talking about a lot everywhere I can go, is that AI is not going to do as much good as people think it's going to do. And they've now tested it. Everyone makes their software developers use AI, and Andrew, if you can please be quiet, it'd be easier. It's hard to talk while you're talking on top of me. Right. So anyway, so the AI, making the software developers use AI, and all the measurements show that it's not really doing them much good. They show it slows them down. It doesn't improve much. It's looking like the European projection is probably correct. They say AI will add 1% to the productivity of workers over the next 10 years. And that's not much. And what's very strange is that we are investing trillions of dollars, I think $3 trillion so far in AI. And it is very unclear how they're ever going to get that back. All the companies doing it are pretending that there is some glorious product going to appear in a year or two that everybody's going to happily pay a ton of money for. And it's not obvious what that product is. It doesn't really seem to be that good at writing code or anything. What people are mostly using it for is a substitute for friends because they're lonely, and it is really, really bad at that job. So anyway, we're in the middle of a huge bubble, and it's very likely going to crash, say, within the next year. Just a huge crash as everybody finally admits that they wasted all that money building those huge data centers to run AI that is not, in fact, producing a product that's worth all that money. Anyway, so European airports have been down for about a week, largely because of a ransomware attack on the payment terminals, and they've caught somebody, and they understand which piece of ransomware it was. But it's so bad that they're handwriting boarding passes with a pen on a piece of paper and giving it to people. That's all they can do. And so many airports have canceled like 75% of the flights because they can't handle the volume. So it's pretty gruesome, and this happens a lot. I compare it to the Colonial Pipeline hack here. Ransomware Colonial Pipeline a few years back and stopped the delivery of oil on the East Coast and froze up a whole bunch of the American economy for about a week. So this was very interesting. And this would be appropriate for this class. There's some app called Coinomi, which is a Bitcoin wallet. And this guy analyzed this app and found out that it dumps all your Bitcoin addresses out in plain text on the internet without using HTTPS. And he thinks that's a very bad thing. And I wanted to investigate that. I could not reproduce this. I could not figure out how to make the app do this. You might have to really put real money in your account and do real exchanges or something. If I could get it to work, I'd add it to this class. But I was unable to demonstrate any of this. It'd be interesting to see. And probably I don't have to tell the students this. People that are well along in the immigration process are still very, very worried. And rightly so, because ICE just seems to be a bunch of thugs that grab anybody and lock them up, like all those South Koreans, hundreds of them, that were here apparently completely legally to help build a factory, and they still swept them away. People are very afraid of ICE for good reason. So this is another measure. They've tried to find out what AI is actually doing on the job, and what they're saying is what most people do is they use it to write stuff, and the stuff is pretty much garbage, and it just makes more work for somebody else. This is what I think. People use AI to write emails, so the emails are all wordy and wasting your time, and documentation and memos and such. And I say it's just a fancy way of dumping your work on another person, which is what usually happens when this kind of thing comes in. It's sort of like you had a bunch of unskilled interns helping you, and you give them a job and they don't do it very well. Anyway, so There's a huge problem with supply chain attacks now. This is a big issue. People keep compromising GitHub tokens and they go into projects and put in bad updates. So now Firefox is letting add-on developers roll back bad updates because there are a lot of bad updates. This may help a little bit. The problem is browser add-ons are very dangerous. They're put up by amateurs, they're not reviewed by anybody, and what happens is if you have a popular one, criminals will offer to pay you to buy it from you so they can put malware in it. And in general, this is true of open source in general. Open source community is a bunch of enthusiasts that spend tons and tons of effort for free developing something. And for a while that's fun. And before long, it becomes a huge tedious burden as everybody complains and submits bug reports and feature requests. And you waste more and more of your free time doing it until you sort of burn out. And then they have huge fights among themselves. And after a few years, they say, why aren't I getting paid for this? And when someone offers them money, they're inclined to take it. So this is an argument that's been going on for 30 years. The whole open source community kind of makes no sense in terms of capitalism. Why are these people working on products? Why are they perfecting them when nobody ever gets paid? And so there's an open source community that says that's wonderful and everybody should do it. And there's a for-profit capitalist economy that says you can't trust anything where somebody wasn't paid and they had a boss supervising them and all that. And there's something to be said for both perspectives. But the most important thing in the real world is you have to understand what you're using and understand its problems. And commercial stuff, you understand, like Microsoft will put ads on the desktop and irritating things like that. And the open source stuff, you have to understand the flaws there too. The developer is likely to be a disgruntled person from a foreign nation that's had it, that will just hand it off to another developer that doesn't love it or just abandon it entirely or sell it to a crook. And that's a problem. So they're putting drones in the sky that have license plate readers now. So you get even more of them. They're already putting license plate readers everywhere. And the EFF is rightly worried about this. It amounts to sort of universal surveillance of everybody. And but it seems not to be illegal yet. And of course, the Trump administration has chosen to go all in on completely fake bullshit science, telling pregnant women that Tylenol will give their kid autism, whereas all the experts say that is absolutely not true. There was a very big study from Sweden or someplace proving that it absolutely was not true. But these guys never care what's true. Trump tried to sell ivermectin for COVID, even though it doesn't cure it, and so on. These guys are the original snake oil salesmen. They're selling fake medicine. And I guess the same 35% of Americans that support everything Trump does, no matter how stupid, will probably buy this too. But the rest of us who would like to survive should work around these people, and the states are now taking over and approving vaccines and stuff. So I got my COVID shot, which now violates the protocol, and I recommend getting it. We're going to have to basically go to unauthorized channels to get the medicine we need, which is nothing new. Lots of people have been going to Mexico and Europe and stuff, and and the scientists are going to have to go to Mexico and Europe and Canada now that we don't support science here, and you have to support fake science. The CDC director, he went and met, RFK went and met with the CDC director, and he told her, you have to promise to 100% approve the vaccine recommendations that we're going to make next week before you see all them. And she said, I'm not going to do that until I see them. And so he fired her and said she was unreliable. He said, I asked her if she was reliable, and she said no. That's his description of that situation. So it's the government does not do their job anymore in the field of science. These people don't understand science and truth. They just see it as a form of propaganda and advertising. Anyway, so that's where we're at. So anyway, let's get on.